it's very nice that we have so international environment, because the talk is as well very international. So I'm really happy to share with you the talk. So maybe I can introduce myself about how can Arctic save us from the global catastrophe. Maybe first I tell something about myself. Yeah, change the slides. Yeah, quickly about me. I'm guide on Svalbard. I arrived this night, so it went quite. I'm after a long trip today. I really love nature and animals. So this is this is why I'm here on Svalbard. My adventure with Arctic, I started like 2 years ago on a polar station in Hornsund. For 1 year, I was working as meteorologist. I'm here for 2 years. My scientific background, I have scientific background is physics. I think before in Poland, in Wrocław, in Granada, Spain, and in France. I like Spain so much, so even I was working there for time in science, and I did my PhD just before coming to Svalbard. It's quite hard for me to have contact with you because I don't hear you, but I want some interaction. So sometimes I will make you questions, and you can think a little bit about the answer, and then we continue. Just a few questions, but you can with the easy one. Do you know where the Arctic is? It's easy, but they confuse Antarctic and Arctic. Arctic on the north hemisphere and Antarctic on the south. The biggest, well, yeah, there are many differences. The big one is that on Antarctic we have a continent, and on Arctic we just frozen ice, sea ice. So this is like a big difference. And as well, of course, they are living like different animals in Arctic and Antarctic. Arctic, of course, penguins, Arctic polar bears, and as well another different animals. But it's not a site for today. But to let you, penguins and polar bears, they have never met. Okay, of some zoos, but they don't live in the same place. We have polar bears. Okay, so it was like a short introduction, and how it's here on Arctic. So here, what you can see is a polar cycle, and Svalbard is quite north about polar cycle. It's so north that we have very long polar day and polar night. We have a polar day for 3 months and a half. How right? It's like I have a little window, so I'm sorry about this. I just arrived during the night, and yeah, polar day, and it will be for 4.5 till end of August in US. Of course, how long is the polar day? It depends on okay, don't see a dirty window, so that's good. Maybe because here we don't have so good internet, so maybe this is why. Yes, long polar day, very long polar nights. Spitsbergen, where I am now, is the biggest island of Svalbard. And we have, like you can see here on the map, it's a quite big island. Biggest settlement is Longyearbyen, what you have seen outside in the window. There are 2,200 people living there. It's really funny because they are from like 40-something different nationalities. So it's a pretty nice environment. I really enjoy living here. Yeah. Another big settlement, it's Barentsburg. It's I don't see it exactly on the map. It's more or less here. It's somehow abandoned Russian mine town, and there are about 400 people living. Russians and Ukrainians. North, we have Nelesund is the city of research stations. We have meteorological station on Hopen, as well in Hornsund, where is the Polish polar station as meteorological station, and I was working there for 1 year. So this is how it looked like. The place I live. Some can see as in the picture auroras. Of course, you cannot see it now because we have a polar day. So this you can see when it's dark. Yeah, but it's just I wanted to show you the introduction, how it's here. But let's go back to the subject of our talk. Yeah, we are going to talk about climate because as you can see outside, it's warm. Okay, you cannot feel it, but it's about 5 degrees. And in general, the climate is changing around the world, and we are talking about this as well. Sharing the screen with you, and I show you the this is global temperature, how it was changing from 1850 till last year. You can see here different difference from January, February, and so on till December. Colors, they are like 150 years ago. And this you can see how it was changing during last 30 years. So you can see that the temperature is increasing a lot, and especially last month. See this GIF. By the way, I can send you later the materials because I will give you my email. So yeah, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, here it's last GIF. It was shown how the temperature is changing. Here you can see more or less the same, but around the so see this? This is the like when it's a white color. This is like a mean temperature, and the red color it's above the normal, and blue it's below the normal. So show it here. Yeah. In periods of 5 years, and now we can see that it's still normal, like in 30s, 40s, 70s, 80s, 2000, 2010. Yeah, let's. Yes, this 2013. See that it's dramatically warm it's very, very warm. Yes. Since it's so warm on the north, it affects a lot the Arctic, and sea ice. It's changing. I'll show you one more GIF. It's this one. This is the Arctic Sea ice volume in 30 years. You see here the months as well. The year. This is the volume. This is in kilometers. You can see that this like 70s. So more or less when your parents were born. So it's how it was like 40 years ago. And you can see that the ice is disappearing, and now we have more or less like 1/3 part that it was 30 years ago. Of course, it has a dramatic impact on the animals living there. Because like polars don't have play goes at the north, but ice is disappearing. Polar bears they need ice to live on. So you have seen how the climate was changing till now, and this rainy summer. Yeah. How the future will be? There's a question to think a little bit. And don't know how the future will be, but we can use some mathematical models to make some forecasts how it will be in the future. They use like different mathematical formula and different parameters, and many calculation models, but all of them, and I found in some paper 20 of them different, they agree in particular in 3 things. As in the future, all of the regions will become warmer. Some places there will be different evaporation. The evaporation it will be in a higher temperature. The dynamic of the atmosphere will be different. So one of the places will be affected by and another will be more rainy. Like maybe it's in Greece, so now it's rain. So yeah, some area it will be more wet and some more dry. Unfortunately, all this circulation models predict that the sea level will rise everywhere. Also, bright future, and unfortunately, the most affected there will be countries because there will be higher temperature and probably more hunger. If there will be more hunger, there will be probably more conflicts. You here in this you can see this is India and this is Nigeria. This is the temperature. This is the mean summer temperature. You can see how it was like so it's about 27 degrees. It was the mean temperature, and in a few years it will be about 30 degrees. You see the difference of 3 degrees. As well with the with Nigeria, so difference is of 3 degrees. This, as you can see, they are taking place very quickly. The question is if the plants have enough time to prepare themselves for the changes. This, we don't know, but it's a question to try. I want to tell something about how long it took to domesticate the plants. 10,000 years ago, people started to use the wheat. They have domesticated this plant, and it's very interesting because people have realized that and if you take away the stones from this grass, the crops are better, so they are more efficient. So 10,000 years ago, when people they have domesticated the wheat. Starting, it was first with rice. About 10,000 years ago, we have domesticated rice. 2 years later, corn, for example, and another plants. They are like a basic of food. And what you can see in this very nice map is that people in Europe more or less, we wheat 2,000 years before that in America they had domesticated corn. And that's really interesting because when we resolve the problem with hunger, and we could develop like society, philosophy, art, and so on. So we had like like pay attention to another things, but food is the totally basic to develop the society. You can see domestication of such kind of food. It took quite a lot, and we did this a long time ago, 8,000 years ago. Well, for example, coffee. A lot of coffee alone. Cannot live coffee. I want to tell you the story about coffee. It's from Africa. With ships, it was transported to Java. From Java, it went to Amsterdam to Paris, and from Paris to Colombia. So you see that now we have so many different coffees. For example, from Colombia, but coffee is not from there. We have changed this plant, and we can see that it's so different. Now it has different aroma, different taste, but comes from one plant. Change this plant. As well, wild cabbage, and with different processes that took years, took hundreds and thousands of years, from crossing and selecting some plants. The wild cabbage, we have things like cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, and so on. So, for example, we were like choosing plants that they had beautiful flowers. So then it became cauliflower. And when we were working on steam, so we obtained kohlrabi. It's very fascinating that some years ago, let's say, it was this plant. So we open some what is called biodiversity, and it's the best seen, I think, with the of paprika, of pepper, that we have different taste. These paprikas, they grow in different places. Interesting that they have very different genetic material, and they have different resistance to some sizes, for example. And this is our tool to confront the problem in the future. We have different paprikas and different another plants. We can play with them because it's not only the taste, but they have different characteristics, and they can grow in some more wet or more dry environment. Just an example, but with all plants we can do the same. I think different in the case paprika or different plants in general can adjust to climate change. So, like for example, use the plants that they grow in dry environments. As well, when we have different plants, some of them they are resistant for some diseases. So, like front some biological disasters, and as well. What is a problem of our problem that we grow like growing plants somewhere in the United States, I think. Then we cannot use all the time the same plants. We have to change the plants. And yeah, this is what problems we can solve with having a different biodiversity. I want to show you, this is a crop, PI 17-183-183, and this crop was found somewhere in Turkey, and it was described like a poor-looking, miserable plant. However, they took it to the United States, and the problem, it was in the 60s, it was a big epidemic. The plants were ill because of some striped rust, some kind of fungi attacking the crops. But this particular crop was resistant to this illness. So to this poor-looking plant, would reduce the loss of a few million dollars. Then, even not so good looking, people still could have because it was resistant for this illness. Why it's so important to collect different seeds, because we don't really know which one is resistant for what conditions and what illness. We have now a big problem because we have genetic erosion, and in like 100 years ago, a little bit more, it was more than 7,000 varieties of apples. But now, majority of them, like big majority, is extinct. So instead of 7,000, we have 200 apples at the moment. With this that we have, really sad because every day, sorry. That's very sad because every day we lose some genetic material, some species, and of course, if we use some kind of carrot, we don't feel the same loss like the dinosaurs. From genetic point of view, yes, it's the same loss as we have every day. Yeah, that is sad, but the carrot doesn't have eyes, so we don't feel that it's so sad. I want to tell you that we have about 40,000 different kind of beans, and I'm a biologist, so I don't see so big difference. We can compare this 40,000 different beans with 40 kind of dogs that we have, and we see that they are so different. We have farm dogs very different. The dogs can be very different. It's very important to store all kind of beans and all kind of seeds in general. Some question? Maybe I won't want to interrupt now. There's different kinds. Sorry. So why we call seeds? People realize quite a long time ago too that it's important to collect the seeds, and we have many banks around the world, about 1,700 around the world. But we have just one vault, so it's like a backup copy of all the seed banks in the world. This is the idea. How it look like? So like a map. Okay, you can how it is. So it's about 130 meters long. The tunnel in the inside the mountain, and we have like 3 rooms, 3 vaults, and just one in the middle here. It's used. And the turn it's about minus 18 degrees maintained in this vault. So there are more than 930 seeds in the vault. I mean seed samples, but the capacity it's about 4.5 million, and contains 506. So minimum of 2 billion seeds can be stored in the vault. They are packed in such, as you can see here. They are like aluminum plastic boxes of 500 seeds inside. And then it's stored in, as you can see here, and then it's shipped to Svalbard. Because we have the sea vault in the mountains. It's very high, for even if the sea ice will rise, so it will not affect it. It's a quite low seismic activity here. There is a permafrost that we have the freezer there that it maintains like minus 18 degrees. However, if it would be broken, so then the temperature will be low temperature because of the permafrost. The temperature of the permafrost is about minus 5 degrees. And moreover, Svalbard is fully stable place. It was chosen to show you this picture as well. This is a former executive director of the Crop Trust, the company that takes care of the Global Seed Vault, how it was constructed. So then the piece of the be taken away. I want to show you a short film. This is a part of film from the Nordgene. So then you have an idea how it looks like. Okay. So I will put it now.
Om 20-30 år har vi förlorat flera 100 000, kanske miljoner sorter. Det är genetiskt material vi har förlorat för allt.
Is giving us options. And when we look at the future, and we look at a future in which we have to produce more food with less land, less water, probably less nutrients in the form of fertilizers, in a context of climate change, options are what we need.
Svalbard, 6,000 square kilometers of Arctic desert. Snow, ice, cold, permafrost immediately below the surface. The pizza for the storage of green diversity. Inside the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, copies of seeds from the world's most important food crops are stored.
I like to answer with this map because we can see that there is like the information or the data from around the world on the Arctic. So I think that's very nice. So I just want to show some pictures that I have done. Usually the Global Seed Vault, but I had to go inside. It was really very interesting. Or it's closed. This is how it looked like the vault, that it's not in use, that it's in use at the moment. So you see that they are like different boxes, and in all these boxes there are the seeds. This is with me, so then you can see that I was really. So as you can see here, long corridors, and I forgot to tell that one vault is about the surface of a squash or tennis court, so it's quite big. So then you can walk around, and in these boxes, plastic boxes, you can the dates from around the world, and what is in general they are in plastic boxes. However, some they are from wood. They are wooden, as you can see here, and those boxes they are from North Korea. So even from North Korea, they have sent the seeds, because it's like to be future. It's much more than politics, and that's beautiful because there the seeds sort together from United States, and Europe, and from North Korea, everything together, and that's beautiful. And I want to live in this moment with the thought that we need to take care together about the future and from countries, and I think that it will be this. So now it's a good time for questions. I hope that I'm able to answer this on the chat, and as well, if you have my email address that you can write